Hello. I have no idea if anyone can hear me because Bob says he can't hear me. Can you still not hear me, Bob? I'm guessing not. If you can hear me, can you please put a rainbow in the chat? You can hear me. Ew. Ah, Bob, I think, 1 second. Sorry about this. You know, the joys of modern technology.
So is it just me that we can hear you, not Bob? Wow, this is strange. So no one can hear me? I was muted for just a second because my kids busted in and started screaming.
Oh, I can hear you. Not that that helps me saying it. I'm sending Bob a screenshot.
Let me double check my sound settings.
Should be a cog on the bottom of the screen.
Yep, it was the StreamYard settings.
Yay!
The camera, but not the... I'm so sorry.
Woo! That is a relief. That is worthy of another.
Yeah, decided to put one of my monitors as the output.
Wow.
It's a strange default.
I'm glad that you can hear me. Thank you for your help, everyone, in debugging that one.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Excellent. Well, you're all here because I'm sure you're aware by now, Bob has... Why am I hearing myself twice? Oh my God. Stop with the technology problems. Anyway, as I was saying, Bob has released his brand new course. Here it is, Learn React for Free. Yeah, very exciting indeed. That went live yesterday. Akash says, thanks for the course. Yes, already lots of people telling me they've signed up and joined up and all the rest of it. And what we're going to do today is take a closer look at this course, find out what it's going to teach you, how it's different from previous courses you may have seen from Bob or elsewhere. Look at the projects, look at all these amazing projects you can build in this course, and answer all your questions. Well, I say all, there are already many comments, as many questions as we can from the chat. So if you have a question about this course, leave it in the chat. That would be great, and we'll do our best to answer it. Mr. India has the first question. Will this course teach everything in React, or do we have to take a paid course after this one? What do you reckon, Bob?
Teaching everything in React would be a pretty big feat.
It is 11 hours long. So.
This is an 11-hour course, but that's because a lot of it is practice and challenges. It doesn't teach everything in React. It teaches the introduction to React. You can see from the course page all the topics that it covers, but it doesn't dive into some of the more advanced topics. And that's because I do have a separate course that goes into more intermediate and advanced React topics that are on that course is on Scrimba already. And so this is just a replacement for my introduction to React. But yeah, it would probably be a 30 or 40 or 50-hour course if I were able to teach everything in React.
It gives you basically the groundwork of React. You'll have a very decent understanding of all these topics in React and probably a few more that aren't in the list once you've done it. Thank you, Mr. India, for your question. Maxine, I took a previous version and it gave me a good understanding of where to go next. So basically, you can dig into the documentation to find out more specific things. Yes.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And I really do think that it makes a lot of sense to spend time with the documentation, even if you have at least what I think is a great course for learning React. It's still a good idea to go to the documentation and see how they teach it and how they introduce it. The React documentation is good. Unfortunately, if you're doing other libraries or frameworks, sometimes they're not great. So it's kind of a crapshoot. It just depends on who wrote the documentation, whether it's good or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Jin says, "Hi Bob, just got my junior software engineer job. Big part thanks to you and your Learn React for Free and React Bootcamp courses.
Oh,
Please
that's so awesome.
keep up great work. That is excellent to hear. Congratulations to you." Yeah, so just to clarify that a bit, you previously had another course called Learn React for Free. This one is also called Learn React for Free. Can you tell us what the difference is between the two? Because I've seen a few people in the chat are wondering.
Yeah. The original course was about a 5-hour course, and I recorded it back in 2018. So it was, I think it released at the end of 2018. And at the time it was React version like 16.4 or 16.5. It was before React hooks. And so everything was class-based, or not everything, but anything that had state or lifecycle methods dealing with side effects and updates to your app. It had to be a class-based component using JavaScript classes. And in React 16, I think .8, they introduced hooks, and those made it so you could hook into the lifecycle methods and the state management system of React in functional components. And so the API for React has changed quite a bit, and it's been so widely adopted that my other course started becoming outdated. And so this is a direct replacement for it, but it also teaches different topics. The original one gave a really cursory introduction to some hooks. This one dives a lot deeper into them. But the other important update, and the reason that this course is so much longer, is due to a change that we're making at Scrimba with our pedagogy, really doubling down on the interactivity and the community aspect of learning. And so the original one certainly had lots of challenges. That was one thing I really tried to do. This one has way more. And especially with the projects that I have you do, it sends you out outside of the Scrimba environment to Figma. We have designs for all the projects that you can actually go into the Figma design to see what the colors are and the spacing between elements on each of these projects. And because we had our designer do them, the projects are much better designed than the ones that I threw together in the original course.
Yeah, as many people are pointing out in the chat, project-based learning. Absolutely. There are 8 projects in this course, 3 of which, this quizzical one and the travel journal and the business card, are solo projects, which is something new for Scrimba. Can you tell us a bit about what that is and what we hope to achieve with it?
Sorry, what is the solo projects?
Solo projects, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, solo projects are an initiative that we're doing at Scrimba. We're going to be adding them to the whole Frontend Career Path. One of the really nice things that Scrimba does, obviously, I assume anyone that's here is familiar with Scrimba, is that it's got an interactive IDE. So when I'm teaching, I can tell you, the student, to pause and to click into my code and make changes, and it will make changes, and you can save those changes and experiment with them. And it lowers the barrier to getting your hands on the keyboard and typing in the same code that I'm typing in. You don't have to go to GitHub, clone it down, set it up on your machine, open VS Code or whatever, and then start typing. There's a good half dozen steps. Here it's one step. You click and start typing. And that's nice. That's awesome, because it increases the chances that students will do the challenges. They'll do the work. The solo project, however, I should finish that thought. However, when it's still very possible for students to just not do it and hit play, and then watch me do it. And so it's still possible that students will get to the end of the course feeling like they know React or whatever topic, but not actually knowing it. Because that's kind of what happens with tutorial hell, is you just watch tutorials over and over and over, and you feel like you're learning, but you're not really getting good at it. And so solo projects are yet another chance to, I guess, kind of kick students in the seat a little bit and say, here's a chance for you to do a project. We have the design for you. All you have to do is write the code, and I'm not going to help you. We take those training wheels off. And it gives students a chance to assess themselves to see if you are able to build this project. It's scoped similar to the one that we just went through together. If you are able to build this project, then you are certainly ready to move on in the curriculum. And that doesn't mean you can't go out to Google or get help from, your friends. But if you're copying and pasting everything, or you're, not writing any of your own code or whatever, or you're staring at a blank screen, that's a good signal to you that you probably still need to keep studying the topics from the previous section before just plowing forward.
Yes, absolutely. Brandon says, this sounds like the kind of React course I've been waiting for. And Sylvia says, solo projects are really helpful. If you always follow a tutorial, it will be difficult to build something by yourself. And I think people also struggle to know what to build. They might have the drive to do stuff or build their own projects, because we talk about it quite a lot on Scrimba, but if you don't know what to build, that's another stumbling block, basically. But here you have a Figma design and everything. So brilliant.
Yeah.
There is...
I was going to say, it's really easy as an instructor to say, go try and build something of your own. But it's really hard on the student side to know what is really hard and what is not really hard. 1 second. I'm also kind of battling like a cough and the after effects of a cold. So sorry, anyone, I'm going to mute myself. It's really hard. I saw that firsthand when I was a teacher at a boot camp, where students we would give kind of some loose requirements, and students would come up with ideas that they thought were well scoped, meaning they thought they had the knowledge to do it, but it would include some really complex things, or it would require some knowledge that we hadn't yet learned. And so, yeah, these solo projects are, I think, a way for me to say, this is a well scoped project. You have all the tools you need to complete it. So that students aren't floundering, thinking like, well, how come I can't build a live chat app? And it's like, well, because you haven't learned WebSockets or Node or backends or anything. But you don't know what you don't know when you're first starting out.
I think that's it. And also, I think if you're building something completely on your own, of your own kind of imagination, then you're probably... you're going to be inclined to build what you already know how to do, which isn't really testing your knowledge. Whereas this, it's kind of a good middle ground where you're not leaning towards the stuff that's really easy, but also it's not going to be something like you mentioned here, a chat app, when you haven't touched WebSockets yet. So sounds very useful. Sergio asks, would you say to do this course after React Basic or before React Advanced? And for those of you who don't know what Sergio is referring to, in our Frontend Developer Career Path, we have React Basics, which is also Bob's old course, that the new one replaces, and the Advanced React. Bob, do you want to explain a bit about what we're going to do with the front-end course in that regard?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the original React Basics course or module in the Frontend Developer Career Path, which was my original course that I'm currently replacing, it used class-based components to teach state and lifecycle methods. And so I then, the following year, recorded my advanced React course, which was the React Bootcamp for anyone that signed up early on. Yeah. And it picked up where the other one left off. So it assumed prior knowledge in class-based components. Because this new course does not teach class-based components, we haven't yet replaced Module 11, because it would be really confusing for someone to finish Module 11 and then jump into Module 12 as if they were supposed to already know class-based components. And so my next task that I'm working on very shortly, I mean, it's today and Monday probably, is recording a little crash course on class components that will be sticking right at the beginning of the Advanced React module, so that people can jump into the Advanced React module. To come back to his actual question, I mean, I probably would take this course because of the additional aspects of it that I think will, first of all, the way I teach it will give you a much deeper understanding of React and what it's doing and the magic it's handling behind the scenes. But it'll also give you a better introduction and way of thinking about React hooks, which I do teach a little bit of in the original courses. But I think this one would be better. I think it's always a great idea to get more practice with React. And you can just skip through the stuff that you already completely understand, like React DOM.render or whatever.
Yeah. But basically, Sergio, we will be swapping out module 11 in the career path. We just need to add a bit more material first, but soon we will be swapping it out. I hope that answers your question. Adrian wants to know, is Redux part of the new course?
No, it isn't. Any third-party package, well, I have very tiny third-party packages that I've added just to help with parts of the course, but anything that's larger, I didn't consider like a core part of this introduction to React course. My React Bootcamp course, or the Advanced React course in Module 12 on the career path, it does have an introduction to Redux and a project that uses Redux, but it's not a full-fledged Redux course. I think in our Twitter space yesterday, somebody talked about their interest level for that, and I've been getting that feedback a lot. So it's certainly something we might consider adding to the career path in Scrimba, but it would be a while till that happened.
Yeah, and I suppose what I should do is share the link to the course. Here it is, scrimba.com/learn/learn React. Yes, so go and check it out, completely free, 11 plus hours of React tutorials. Yes. I really like Scrimba. Woo, yes, says Adesuwa. Would it help to learn Vue, then React, or the other way around, or another JS framework, then React? My understanding of this has always been that basically whichever framework you learn makes it easier to learn one of the others, so it kind of doesn't matter. Would you agree with that, Bob?
Yeah, they all kind of have the same paradigm of custom components and composability and the declarative nature of components. And so there's going to be a learning curve no matter which one you start. I would say if your goal is if you're not yet employed as a developer, React will be an extra, I guess, edge or advantage because there are more companies hiring React developers than Vue developers. But if you're already employed or getting a new job is not your primary concern, then yeah, I'd say whichever.
Yeah, it's a bit like when people say whichever programming language you learn first will help you to learn any others in the future. So
yeah, exactly.
Brandon McConnell, how does this compare to the React Bootcamp on Scrimba? Is the paid bootcamp deeper? Is this class-based rather than functional-based? Now, this is where things might be slightly confusing for some people because we have Advanced React and React Basics in the Frontend Developer Career Path. We also have the new course, Learn React for Free, as a standalone course. And we have the React Bootcamp, which is here. Could you clarify what is going on there for people who don't know, Bob?
Yeah, so the probably the first thing to get out of the way is that the React Bootcamp is the same thing as Module 12, Advanced React. They're the same content, I should say. I think they might live in two separate places.
Yeah,
that's just because we originally were selling the bootcamp as its own standalone course that people could buy. And then when we moved completely to a subscription-based model, we just use that course in Module 12 in the career path. So those two things are the same.
Yeah.
This course is a precursor to the bootcamp course, which is also the advanced React course. And then everything that I talked about in the previous question still applies.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you for clearing that up. Candice, having strong vanilla JS skills will help learning front-end frameworks a bit easier. Yes, we have this question a lot. Should I learn JS or React first? We have said in the prerequisites for this course that you should, if I can find them.
It's a lot of info on this course.
You should definitely have a decent understanding of HTML, CSS, and JS. How can people know that they're ready to move on to React?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I hate to take people necessarily outside of the Scrimba platform, but there's tons of resources out there. I think Wes Boss has a course that's pretty key. 30 days of JavaScript in 30 days, JavaScript 30. That's what it's called. And since it's only a month, I would say if you can make it through the JavaScript 30 class, then or his course, it's free. Then that's a good signal that you're probably ready. But if you're doing the career path and you've been actually doing the challenges and you can build the projects by yourself, then that's just as good.
Yeah, I agree. We've given these two courses, which are also part of the front-end developer career path, as kind of prerequisites. So if you've done both of these and have a decent understanding, then I reckon you're ready to go on to React. Milosh wants to know, what's the next step after the React Bootcamp?
That's a good question. There isn't, currently there's, I think, a Netflix clone in the career path. And so if you're taking the career path, that's what would come next. It doesn't adhere to our new pedagogy at Scrimba quite as well as we want. And so we'll be replacing this with, I think actually we'll just be removing it based on user feedback and eventually replacing it with something else. I do plan on adding some even more advanced React topics. So maybe then would have to rename the advanced React to like intermediate React or something.
Yeah.
But that course, I would like to cover some additional, I guess, packages or like some third-party stuff in React, especially things like styled components, and then getting outside of React to build something more like a CRUD app if we're using Firebase, which I think maybe the Netflix clone does. So just reaching a little bit outside of React, doing things like authentication, which I guess would probably also be in Firebase. Other cursory things that you would oftentimes use with React, but aren't necessarily React themselves, would be after that. But maybe the next step, I guess for now, the next step after the React Bootcamp is to start applying for jobs. Take the career path stuff, keep practicing building projects, building out your portfolio, doing your LinkedIn, and apply. Yeah,
totally. And if you're looking for projects to add to your portfolio, I reckon you could use some of these. The solo projects especially would be good for that because you can add your own take on them. Maybe you want to redesign them if that's your thing. So yeah, plenty of inspiration in the new course. Jimmy, I look forward to going through this new course. Is there any chance the React Bootcamp will be updated as well, or maybe there won't be a need for it?
Yeah, I think eventually I'll be updating the bootcamp. In fact, I think that'll be relatively soon. There's maybe a few other things I need to work on in the career path, but that will be something coming up soon because it probably will focus less on classes. And maybe I should address that. I do still want to teach classes because I think a lot of people are going into jobs where the code base includes classes because the code base is not brand new. So I still want to teach those and cover some projects with them. But yeah, I imagine I'll be updating the React Bootcamp course eventually.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's what Mohammed says here. I have applied to a job recently, and the quiz of React.js was on class-based components. So is it also important to consider class-based components? Well, that answers that. Yes, if you're dealing with legacy code, then you might well come across class-based components. Yes. Brandon McConnell, functional programming is the standard these days, but what about for us devs who need to learn and use class-based components and class-oriented programming React for our jobs? Yes, so that basically is answered by what Bob just said. He still wants to teach it for that very reason. Thank you for bringing that up, Brandon.
Thanks.
Yeah. Wow. Esomia. How do you explain, so do you explain the difference and common points between class versus functional components in your updated React course? Interesting question.
Yeah, I don't really touch on class-based components at all. I think I might mention them a time or two in this course, but I really don't cover them at all. Although all these questions about class-based components is making me wonder if I just need to throw in a couple lessons on, so that people aren't confused when they see them after taking this course. So I might have to consider that.
Yeah, let us know what you think. You can always drop an email to help@scrimba.com with any of your feedback. We're always listening. Okay, so I do this before the advanced. Exactly, Sergio. This is something that's a few people have asked. If you replace the React Basics course in Frontend Path and replace it with this new one, will the React Basic course be archived or gone from the Frontend Path? It will be. But if you've already completed it, what you can do is email help@scrimba.com and they will basically fix it so that you still keep your progress. However, we would also recommend for your own good to do the new material because it contains the newest features of React. We just understand that it can be a bit frustrating if you've got to a certain amount of progress and then you lose it because we switch stuff out. But we also have to switch stuff out because of the nature of web development is constantly being updated. So it's striking a balance. But to answer your question, if you go to the new Learn React course, there is a link here to the old material as well, in case you ever want to reference it. So like Bob's saying, the class-based material is in here, so you can access that by going to that link. So it's not gone, it's just not in the career path anymore. I hope that answers your question. People never know when they're ready, says Debjet. They just jump in. Yes. I'm not sure if you're saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think my take on it is there's never really a point where you think, yes, I'm totally ready. So you've just kind of got to go for it. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Will Scrimba teach React Native and Redux? We've touched on Redux. What about React Native?
Maybe eventually. The one thing that's tricky about Scrimba is because of our kind of groundbreaking technology with the embedded IDE or the interactive IDE, any new technologies that require us, especially to like compile things on a backend, like in Node, can become tricky and requires the dev team at Scrimba to implement new things. So I imagine eventually we'll have a React Native course, but it would be after some pretty heavy lifting from the developer team to allow the Scrimba environment to support it.
Yeah, which is the same situation with Node, which we're hoping to offer next year. We just need to build the tech first. Well, I say they. I'm not involved in this, thankfully. Yes. What is the main difference between the free and the paid React course? Why should I buy the paid course? We recommend you do the free course, i.e. this one, first, and then move on to the paid one. Basically, the paid one is the advanced version, Rashid. So I hope that clears that up. for you. Ooh. I am happy, says Emma, to take the old Learn React course and now get repetition with the new course. That is an excellent point. A little bit of revision never hurt anyone. Yes.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of having a, kind of video-based or recorded course is if there's a topic you absolutely already know, just scrub it to the end so that it counts as done on your account, and then check out the next one and see if or do the challenge. I mean, almost every cast has a challenge in it, so it's definitely worth the review.
Totally. Backend using Scrimba is tough. Yes, a Tailwind CSS course, please. We already have one.
Yeah, we've got a Tailwind CSS course.
I'm sure we do.
I haven't taken it, so I don't know how it is.
I spelled Scrimba wrong. That's a good start. Yes, we do. I've not looked at it lately. But here you go, Debjit. Check it out. Sarmat, is React more useful and powerful than Python? What Scrimba thinks. This kind of reminds me of something I saw in the FAQ, which was, she says, maybe it's been deleted. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, here we go. Can I use React with WordPress, Django, PHP, and other backend tools? Now, previously in the old course, there was a similar question, and the answer was basically no. But I noticed that Per went in and edited this and said basically yes. So React is suitable for use in the back end now, is my question, I guess.
That's a good question. I actually don't know much about server-side rendered React. The base of the question is is React more useful and powerful than Python? It's apples and oranges, because first of all, React is a library written in JavaScript, and Python is a language. I'm sure you understand that. Python is a backend language. React is meant for front-end UIs, so they live in different places. If you dig deeper, there is node libraries for rendering React, like Next.js does server-side rendered React. But it's still not a programming language, even though it's being rendered on the back end. It's happening through node processes. I don't know offhand if I don't know how React handles backend in Python. If you're asking if Python can render React and send it to the front end, it's possible, or maybe Per's answer here is saying that yes, you can. But if you're doing an API separated REST architecture, you would use both of them together. You would have React as your front end, and that would make API calls to ask for data from your back end, which could be written in Python, maybe with Django. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I did see another question, which I now can't find because the chat is just popping. That question was, where can I find Redux in the bootcamp? And here it is. There's a section, the second from the bottom, if you want to check out Bob's Redux lessons. Yes, and I will drop the link to the bootcamp in there as well. Very good. Bob, this is a good question. How do you choose which projects to do at certain learning points in the course? How can a new dev more accurately scope projects to be challenging but still doable? I was planning to ask you actually, so thank you for this, Candice. Basically that. How did you decide what projects to put where?
Yeah, it's certainly a back and forth process. With the way that I approached the curriculum was using, I think it's called reverse design or backward curriculum design or something like that, which basically says design the assessments that you want and then teach what you need in order for people to pass those assessments, instead of saying, here's a huge list of topics that I want to teach. When I recorded the first course, what I had done was I just made a huge list of all the topics that I wanted to teach and put them in the order that I think made sense. And then I crammed in some exercises and challenges in between to make it interactive. And with this one, I did it the exact opposite. I said, I want someone to be able first to create, I went to the end and I said, here's my Tenzies project, which is one of the ultimate projects that we have, the final projects that we have. And and then I broke that down into pieces and said, well, there's a lot of interactivity and state here. So let me create an app or a project that has interactivity and state. And that's where the meme generator came from. And then I said, but let's also have something that has repeated elements. And so that was even earlier in the career path. That's where we have the Airbnb experiences clone, where there's parts of the page that are static, but then those cards are repeated, but using one component that's reusable. Yeah. And then even more basic than that is the React Facts page, which is just a static page. Like if you were actually making this for someone, you would just use HTML and CSS. There's nothing interactive about it. But it's a chance for us to learn React syntax and basics. And so I came up with those projects, hoping that each step along the way would help us eventually build the Tenzies project at the end, and then figured out what curriculum I would need to teach in each of those projects in order to get people to the to be able to do that project. And then the solo projects are intended to be those projects that are already scoped for you and are challenging but still doable, and even include a design. So you're not floundering on the CSS. You can just practice CSS instead of trying to be a UI designer at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite easy to get sort of sidetracked in the design when you really want to be learning the code side of things. So that will be really helpful. What about the people who are asking or saying, I suppose, yes, Scrimba is great for getting started because I don't have to set anything up. However, how do I make that transition to my local machine when I actually want to? Is that tackled in the course?
It is, yeah. That was certainly, I think, the number one feedback I got from the original course, and I have no idea how I didn't even think to include that in the original course, because it's really important. And so, this is the new one. Open the Build a React Info site. In the first section, number 5 is the quick way to do local setup. In that, I just use CDNs and like an in-browser Babel transformer, which means you don't have to set up Webpack. You don't have to do any of that. You can just have an HTML file and a JavaScript file and probably a CSS file. That's not that. And then you use an extension like Live Server or a node process. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, there's another one that'll basically spin up a local server for you to do stuff on. Excuse me. But and then I think if you scroll down a little bit, set up a number 19. Yeah, number 19. So it's setting up a local React environment with Create React App, which is the first one is kind of the quick and dirty and easy way. This is a more correct way. It actually requires your computer to have Node and NPM, and then you install your project with Create React App and you spin it up using NPM start, and that's a much more kind of correct way to get React set up on your computer.
Yeah.
But it's more than just opening the code in a browser like you might be used to with HTML and JavaScript.
Yeah, so there's a bit more to it. As Milos says here, but you can go and check out those 2 casts that Bob mentioned in the new course, and hopefully that will clear everything up for you. Yes. Does the new course, says Simon, teach more than the old 4-hour course. So yeah, I think what Simon's asking is, does it teach more or does it teach different things? Or both?
I'd say it mostly covers the same capabilities, but it includes a lot more practice, a lot more projects. And I would say it goes more in depth too. I mean, in the early course, there were certain things that I skipped over in favor of just talking about React, but have in this course, I decided that some of those things were important to remove some of the magic of React. So for example, when I talk about JSX, I don't just say, and this is a cool new way you can do it. Like this is a cool way you can write what looks like HTML in your JavaScript and leave it at that. I actually probe into that a bit. I say, well, let's console log a piece of JSX and see what it looks like. Oh, it's just a JavaScript object. So React is receiving these objects and then translating them into DOM elements. So in that sense, I go a little more deeper, but the breadth or the width is not quite as, it's similar, I would say, in scope.
Perfect. Great explanation there. Debjit has reminded me of our weekly, well, more than weekly actually, every live streamly tradition, which is, if you are new here, please put a bunny rabbit into the chat. And if you've been before, hit me with that tiger. And you can see Debjit has put many tigers. I don't know if Debjit's actually counting, and that is the number of live streams that Debjit's been to. If so, that's impressive. But you can do that, or you can just put one tiger or one bunny rabbit. Yes, we'll be very interested to see who we have here. Ooh, Hero is a tiger. So is Oscar. And we have some bunny rabbits. Well, they're coming in so quickly, I can't click them. Yes, welcome to all the bunny rabbits and welcome back to all the tigers. Fabulous to have you here. And for those of you who are new, if you are not familiar with Scrimba, it is a course, no, not that one, where you can learn to code. And I'm here with Bob Ziroll, who has just dropped his brand new 11-hour course, yes, about React. Learn React for free. Excellent. I had a question here from Debjit. Are you using Axios or Fetch?
Yeah, in the course I use Fetch. Partway through, I kind of wished I had just used Axios, but they're so similar. Well, I shouldn't say that. They both accomplish the same thing. Fetching data from an API ends up being a relatively small part of this course. I teach it, and we go through examples, and we have a project that uses it. But I was trying to steer clear of any third-party packages that would just start to confuse people about how the internet works, because JavaScript has a built-in way to get data, and with Fetch, it's a little more complex than Axios, or rather, the API for Axios is a lot nicer, I think, than Fetch. But I didn't want to continue adding third-party packages and start conflating what React is and what those other packages are. Yeah,
totally. Adrian asks, is React high in demand for jobs? I would say yes, generally. It also depends on your region or where you want to work. So I would recommend checking out some job ads in your area, or if you're planning to move, then in that area. But overall, we have found that React is the most popular, or one of the most popular technologies for front-end development. So I hope that answers your question there. Adrian, yes. Let's see what is going on here. I don't know if this is answered before, but if you've done Learn React for free and advanced, is there some new content worth going back and revisiting? Absolutely, yes. If you have done the old Learn React for free course, Fabian, we strongly recommend that you do the new one because it contains all the latest features of React, and it's also more in depth. So yes, totally worth doing it. Hope that helps. Yeah, I want to know, Bob, is this course for complete React beginners? So we talked a bit about how much JavaScript you need to know. Are we taking it from the ground up in terms of React in this course?
Yeah, I mean, at least I tried to. And there's an important distinction to make there, because I actually got an email. Somebody was saying your course level says intermediate, but then it says that it's for a beginner. And in fact, we might want to update that where it says the perfect starting point for any beginner. Maybe specifically say it's for any beginner in React or something.
Yeah, any React beginner. That's true.
Because I certainly think that you should have lots of experience writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I don't mean you need to have worked in it for years or anything, but I certainly wouldn't want anyone to jump into React without really any other experience or very cursory experience with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, those fundamentals, and then expect to grasp what's going on. So this, for React beginners, anyone who has experience in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then yes, this starts from the ground up. You don't need to know a lick of React when you start this course. So definitely introductory.
Yes, thank you to whoever pointed that out. We will change this to say any React beginner, because that's what we meant by that there. Sorry for any confusion. Yes. Hello, Bob. Says If Paul, you have an awesome way of teaching. Enjoy your lessons.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Is there any way React is maybe weaker compared to other front-end frameworks? And what are the libraries we can use to cover these weaknesses? Well, there is a question on that. Nope. In the FAQ section. What isn't good about React? You will find there's no predefined way to structure your app. What does that actually mean, Bob?
Yeah, so React is more of a library than a framework, which means that they give you some tools. Excuse me. They give you some tools to build your application, but it's up to you to use them in a way that will be long-lasting and scalable and everything. But it's not an opinionated framework that says, no, you need to structure things this way. And so it's, in that sense, it's kind of loosey-goosey. You can do things in a very terrible way using React and still have a project that works. I don't know. I honestly don't know much about the other frameworks. A lot of people are concerned with certain aspects of React that are a little more verbose. There's a funny meme out there that has, I think it's Kabe Lame, the guy who like on TikTok does that with his hands. You know, he's like, this is the obvious answer that compares how to create state in React versus how to create it in Svelte. And so Svelte is a great, relatively newer framework that simplifies a lot of things. It discards the virtual DOM and stuff like that, and in order to simplify things for the developer experience. So it's the nice thing about React is that it's being constantly updated and improved, but it's just different than the other. Otherwise, the other ones wouldn't exist, And if you really are, if you're starting something new and it's really important that new thing, is going to be a huge business or something, then you'll want to do a lot of research between different frameworks before jumping in.
Yeah, that sounds a bit what you're saying about how you can do things in not the proper way, but it still works. That sounds a bit like HTML. I mean, basically, you can write all sorts of crazy things in HTML and it will still basically render. Kevin Powell was saying this in his newsletter this week, and it's true. So you don't really know if you're doing something wrong, whereas with JavaScript, it throws an error and it just does not work. So it sounds like a similar thing to that. So yes, that's one of the, I suppose, potential downsides to look out for there, Tristan. Yes, or be aware of. Anyway, yeah. It would be great, says Adrian, if Scrimba had mentors and assessors to validate projects from Scrimba's created solo by students. We do hope to offer that in the future. Yes, that is in our long-term plan.
Well, and one of our major initiatives that we're working on is increasing the community aspect of this sort of thing. So having code reviews from student to student is really important to us, at least on the education side. It's one of our main initiatives. So yes, that's, in fact, we were calling the solo projects self-assessment projects, but the term self-assessment seemed a little more like you couldn't reach out to anyone. Solo obviously still means by yourself, but it has less of a connotation that you are not allowed to get help or get assessed by anyone. I think that was the main thing, is the word assessment implied that you could only assess yourself and not get assessments from other people. And one of the things that we're going to be working on is making it so that students can get those assessments with each other, get code reviews in Scrimba. So somebody can say, hey, can I get feedback on this? And I can click into it. I can record my feedback or type in my feedback and send it to them, and they can review the feedback and make changes. Kind of like a code review on GitHub or something.
Yeah, like Digit is saying there. Please do pair coding session or live projects on React. I'm always available for this type of activity. So it seems like that will be right up your street, Digit. Asad is asking a question. I am from Pakistan. I want to ask you about, who do you see better for React? Saga or Observable or Thung? I don't know what these things are.
I haven't used any of those. I haven't used Redux, Saga, Observable, or Thung, or MobX, or any of the other state management systems. The only one I've used is plain Redux. So I couldn't honestly speak to any of those. I wish I could help you more.
The jury is still out on that one. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Nowadays, React is going for jobs. Yes, exactly. I always get confused, says Herthik, to use useState or useEffect, and also in which component to use, because every component is imported to another component. Any suggestions?
Yeah, there's a lot packed into this question. My suggestion would be to take this course, because I really tried to I specifically focused on the useEffect content that I added here, to make it as good of a resource as I have found anywhere. Maybe that's just how my brain works, and I think it's best for me, but hopefully it's best for everyone, in understanding useEffect, because it is extraordinarily confusing if you approach it the wrong way, but it's so simple if you get the right introduction to it and the right approach to it. And so there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot packed into this. My suggestion is to take the course, and hopefully that will clarify it. Specifically section 3. If you this question makes it sound like you already have kind of the beginnings of React under your belt. And so jumping into section 3, it looks like around cast 10 or so, I start talking about state. And then towards the very end of this, I start talking about side effects and how to handle those. So 54, intro to useEffect.
Yes, hopefully that will help you out. And sorry, this question is repeated. If someone is starting the course, should he do both older and updated course, or just the updated? I don't actually think we've answered that yet. So if someone's halfway through your previous course, should they just switch to this one, or should they finish the other one first? What's your recommendation on that front, Bob?
I mean, I think it doesn't hurt to keep learning more. So you might do the old course and then get to this new course, and it's kind of like transferring credits at university, right? Like you'll get to this course, and there will probably be things that you can skip over or skim through, on 2x speed or something. So, but if you're just starting, I would say just start with this one, the new one. It's it's more in depth, and it covers most of the same topics as the original, other than class components. But then if you and I don't know, maybe I might actually chat with Per today and talk about how there's been a demand for still learning class components, and maybe this class component crash course actually needs to be added to this free React course instead of the paid bootcamp course.
Onto the end of this one, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I think answers the question here, which we have touched on earlier, but to clarify for people who are joining now, what's the difference between the React we have in module 11 and 12 of the Frontend Career Path, this and this, not this, yeah, this, and the new course? Basically, the new course, this one, will be replacing module 11, and module 12 is the React Bootcamp. So I hope that clears things up for you. Habib, wow. That is all we have time for. Amazingly, an hour has flown past already. Well, thank you for joining me, Bob. It was great to hear a little bit more about your new course. Very exciting stuff. And here is that link once again for those of you who have not yet signed up. It aims to teach you everything you need to know to get started with React. 11 hours of free React content just in time for the weekend. Yes, well, thanks for coming along, everyone. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you can find out what live streams are coming next. And yeah, let us know how you get on with the course. Always listening to your feedback. Yes, thanks for coming, and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.